I thought, since we've kind of been talking about it here and there over the last couple podcasts, I thought it would be really good if we talked a little bit about secondary transition and what life after school looks like for our kids and how we prepare. And Chrissy, you may think you're too young to get your kids started, but the way the world changes, I don't think you're ever too young. You know,
Yeah.
I remember I went to my first secondary transition conference at Penn State. And I went back home. I learned a lot, and I went back home and I started preparing my youngest for transition. And we were sitting in their very last IEP, and I brought my friend who was kind of like when I finally moved to Pittsburgh, like my boots on the ground advocate. And we're like high fiving. Yes, last IEP meeting. This is great. And my kiddo goes, until my IEP meeting at college. And I was like, where have I failed? No. There are no IEPs in college, kiddo. You're on your own. You're gonna have to do it all now.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't think that you could ever kind of get them to that point where they're fully ready, or we're fully ready for them to be ready. So I know Pearl and Tracy, you guys have seniors this year.
Yes.
What are you guys thinking?
It's a lot. It literally like snuck up on me.
Right?
It did, Tracy. When Levi was in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I'm like, okay, yeah, we got time. Well, we're here.
Yeah.
And I am way behind the 8 ball. I am, I don't know.
Same.
I'm just, it's bizarre. It is bizarre. And then every day that passes, I'm like, okay, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll call, and I'm on top of OVR, which is the Office of Vocational Rehab for any of our listeners, but I'm on top of things, I think. And then because I have made some appointments and attended some meetings, I think I'm okay. And in reality, I'm not. It's almost like we need a checklist, like let's do this. Did you do this? And then just because you did it, did the other person on the other end get back to you? Like, are they doing what they're supposed to do? And that's the hard part too. It's like piecing this darn puzzle together.
I absolutely agree with Christina when she says, Chrissy, like, you might not think that it starts to affect you, but oh my gosh, yes, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. I feel like I know nothing. And I was telling this to Christina yesterday. I think it was, you prepare yourself for the IEPs and all of the things going into special education, and that's fine. We're doing that, right? But then once transition happens, you're like, wait a minute. I am not ready for this at all. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what goals we need to be doing. And it's here. It's now, and it's already passing. It's already gone, it seems like. And I'm just like going, I'm freaking out a little bit.
But I think even because we know so many kiddos with mental health challenges don't have IEPs, don't have 504 plans, and that's cool. And even our typically developing kiddos, as parents, and we've been talking about this for the last couple weeks, just whenever we get together, about our kiddos not having any idea how to file taxes and how actual work works, and how to write checks and how to address envelopes and stuff. And we should be focusing on our kiddos leaving the house, whether they're typically developing, whether they have a disability. What I think, especially just in our conversations over the past couple of weeks, we've learned is it's on us as parents. The schools are not coming to save you. The schools are not preparing our kiddos for what will happen after they graduate from high school. And one of the things, I worked on a project a long time ago, and one of the things that is just burned in my brain is just this idea that even if you have a child with any type of disability or any kind of special need at all, you come up with these really great plans, and then something happens and they get out of whack. And Now, parents, because everyone else is gone, parents are now kind of stuck trying to pick up the pieces and help our kiddos get back on track. Maybe they have a bad first semester. Maybe they were going to school on some kind of scholarship and they get hurt and they're not sure if they're going to be able to stay on their scholarship. Maybe what they thought they wanted to study or where they wanted to go to school isn't really where they want to be. So, and then too, I've been hearing a lot lately, even once they graduate, even from like college, there's that gap of what now? So, yeah.
I'm still sitting here trying to figure out what we're going to do after senior year. Or even just senior year, you know? I mean, I had this conversation. My daughter goes to a transition center for part of the day. And we were getting ready to go to an appointment, and the teacher basically just kind of like in passing kind of said, well, next year you won't be doing the co-op and you're not going to be going to the on-job training. And I kind of stepped back and I'm like, but why not? Why? You know, and that information is not being given, and that information is to maybe the goals that she was having were not being met yet. And I'm like, that communication, I think, again, we were talking about this in the last talk, the communication, you know, is so key. And I just wonder sometimes, yes, the schools aren't going to save us, but they need to be letting us know, like, hey, we're not there yet. And maybe next year might look different for your child than maybe some of the other kids that are here. So, you know, I just kind of like, that was like a gut punch again. Like, wait a minute, why are we not there? What are we not gained? What have we not met, you know?
And why weren't you told about that ahead of time? That's the main thing.
I was furious. Really was. And then to top it off, we got a report card, and the transition center was an F. And I was like, what the heck? Again, that communication to me was not given. I started emailing, and I know it's summer. I don't know if I'm going to get a response. And I go, why was I not told? Why was I not told that this was an F before? Especially even when that passing conversation happened, and we did have a conversation in email. You know, why was I not told that last week before, you know, that this was happening? Yes, I do blame my daughter as well. She is 17, and she chose, in the information I'm being given, she chose not to do her assignments. So yes, she got a 0 for those assignments, but I feel like I should have been told that she was choosing not to turn those assignments in to get a 0, and I could have had that conversation with her. Because I would be like, you're not getting a 0. You're going to do those work, and you're going to go back to school tomorrow and finish it.
Where was that conversation all along? I mean, that's the whole point of an IEP. And so maybe definitely meet with the IEP team at the beginning of the school year. And
I immediately ringed in the special education director, and I go, this was a complete shock. And it's the second time that that's happened, that an F came home from the transition center. I said, this is unacceptable. You know, we need to have a conversation about what that 0 looks like and why doing that classwork needs to be done. Because for her, I think that it was just like, I'll take the 0. It's not a big deal. Yes, it's a big deal. You are in a transition center for employment skills. And we're in our senior year now, going into looking for employment. This is a big deal.
Yeah, I don't think, and especially thinking about my kiddo with ADHD, you know, that in the moment, I don't feel like doing it. I'll make it up next time. I don't think that they really realize how hard it is to come back from a 0. You know, you have 2 A's, like 2 100s, you get 1 0, and you are like, you know, it's hard, really hard to come back from that. Yeah. But again, I think I think knowing that so many of our kids, especially our kids with maybe some more extreme challenges, we know that there's that idea that they graduate to the couch. And so while I know the kiddos really aren't into it, I really think so many families should consider banking the diploma and letting their kids stay in school for that extra. It could be like an extra up to 3 years for some kiddos. And for some kiddos, and it doesn't have to be, they could exit at any point in time. But to really kind of stay back and get that extra help, it shouldn't be their 13th year of high school of school, or technically maybe 14th with kindergarten, but they should be doing some other things. And sometimes kiddos just need that extra time to figure some more stuff out. Maybe it just takes them a little bit longer. But like for so many reasons, there's other things that they need to do that they maybe weren't able to get to in a regular school. So it could be transportation, depending upon where you live. It could even be classes at the community college to kind of take some of the maybe like remedial classes that they would have, you as the parent would have had to pay for, or you would have had to use your UVR money to pay for. So, I think that that's a really good idea. As you just have to be really careful about how you present it to your kid, because for so many kiddos, when you go, you graduated, you walked across stage, you went to prom and everything, and now next year you're going back there, like in many cases they don't even have to go back to the building. So you could be really
that's a really good, I guess for me, I feel like I don't know what that means and what that looks like to bank your diploma, and when I asked that in an IEP meeting, they kind of just really brushed it off like, we're going to get, she's going to get there. We've got her covered. And my husband looked at me and said, they're going to pass her. They're going to just push her along. So I think that's a good idea, Christina, but I, as a parent, don't know what that looks like. Yeah. And I think that that's the most scariest thing because of this unknown, right? Like, Pearl, like, did anybody ever talk to you about banking the diploma and telling you what that looks like?
The first time I heard it was when Christina mentioned it a month or whatever ago. And I'm like, never. I mean, I knew that Levi could, he could stay a couple extra years, but no one ever wanted to discuss or even discussed it. It was just like, and he's relatively cognitively like on target. He's okay that way, but I still would have liked, he's still behind, but not super behind, but I still would have liked to have that option or that conversation.
Yeah. Well, and like for Levi, you said, he's got that rigid thinking, and he does have transportation needs. Mm-hmm. And so at some point that's going to be, managing his transportation to live independently. If that is his choice, and even to live independently within your own home, right? Mm-hmm. That should be something that he is able to do. If he's going to be eligible for a waiver for a care aid, he's going to have to know how to manage that relationship. And so, that could be something that, maybe in his extra year, that he learns how to do. He learns hiring and management and transportation and things like that. Like, this is really your opportunity to get very creative. And of course, schools won't mention it because, remember, they think of our kids 1 year at a time. They're not thinking about your child's lifelong picture. They're thinking about 1 year. They're thinking about grade 12. They're gone. We've got a lot of money to spend and we don't have enough, time and people and money. So we're just going to push the kids on, and then they're their parents' challenge. But, it can definitely be something that you discuss, and it doesn't have to go by like, oh, they passed her, so she graduated. If there are still other challenges that you have identified, that things that need to be worked on that are next, maybe she needs, or any of them need, that bridge year to figure things out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's definitely worth.
It's very complex. It's just complex. It is.
And girl, you're going to the transition conference this year. It will that be your first time?
It will be. So I'm excited. So, just to learn about what other options, because I think I just missed it last year,
Yeah.
but I'm just excited to see what are Levi's options, what are our other families that we work with, what are their options, right?
Yeah.
Because we talk to so many families from all walks of life with so many different needs. Yeah, I just really excited to get there and fill my head, and hopefully it stays in there.
It was really eye-opening for me. I mean, I think I came out of that going, I was a mom at that conference. Not that I'm not a mom at all those other conferences, but this was so eye-opening for me. I also had a lot of heartbreaking moments at the conference because I recognized how difficult things were for my daughter, because in one session, it was put on by OVR, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. And it was really kind of going to that store and recognizing how much things cost. And, it was an activity, and she struggled immensely. And it was just heartbreaking for me. And so it really made me start thinking about those life skills beyond what I thought were needing. So I look forward to it this year with you.
Oh, I can't wait. Now, I will say I'm not bringing Levi. It's just a lot to manage one person with him. So we talked about it, and I could do it, but he's a little extra, as the kids say these days. He's a little extra.
Aren't they all extra?
So yeah. So just I always need an extra hand, in the room, just for physically to help him. So what, I just thought, I'm just going to do this myself. I can focus. I can gather stuff, and I'm excited about it.
Well, I think our whole statewide team will be there. So that'll be nice if anybody wants to reach out and kind of connect. We will have a table there at the vendor fair. So that'll be nice. But, Chrissy, kind of bringing you into this, I know we were talking the other day about how your daughter already has her life laid out for her. And, I do think too, for us as parents, that it's a really good idea to, I was really lucky. I had a mentor early on for that project that I worked on. And it was a mom who was my mentor, and she kind of spent some time talking to me, like I wanted to jump right into work. And she's like, hold on, let's get to know each other a little bit. What's going on in your life? How are your kiddos? What's up with them? And at that time, I was mostly concerned about my oldest, who has a fairly rare genetic disorder called phenylketonuria, or PKU, and how she would manage her own diet and stuff and medication. And she really encouraged me to have my kiddo set her own doctor appointments and get her own medication refills done. And luckily, a lot of that is automated for us now, but still making doctor appointments. I think it's really helpful as our kiddos start to get older, and it's never too early to start doing this now. Chrissy is kind of talking to our kiddos about what is you have ADHD, and this is how I notice that it affects you. What do you think? And having those conversations so that they understand what their diagnosis is, like the official diagnosis, but they also understand what that means for them, and not necessarily how it affects them in negative ways. But I see that you are really able to be a creative problem solver. You're always the first one when, something comes up for us to be able to say to you, or for you to be able to say, oh, why don't we try it this way, mom, or, with your friends or whatever. So to really let them understand what their strengths are, especially as they kind of manage that, what's going on in their lives.
I have a slight advantage in that regard because I am an adult with ADHD, raising a child with ADHD.
Yeah.
So it doesn't ever feel like, at least to her, that I'm coming from like a negative place when I'm talking to her about something. Like, I struggle with this, this, and this. Are you also struggling with these things? Like, this is how I, manage to clean a room. I make a list. I, check it off as I go. So from the time she was little, I was working with her on executive function skills that maybe I didn't get until adulthood because nobody took the time to say, like, this is hard for you. This is how maybe you could try it. So that part goes fairly well. And we were talking a little bit about neurotypical children and their transition and how it's still tough for them earlier, and I couldn't get a chance to jump in. But so when I started dating my husband, his mom died the year that we were dating, and he has a significantly younger brother, 8 years younger. So he was 14 at the time. And we kind of took over slightly like the parental role. Even now, he always like jokes that we're his parents, but he was struggling with school. He was in a cyber program that maybe wasn't like a great fit for him. And the public school, like the school of origin, just told him to drop out. So, he dropped out at 14, didn't really understand what that meant for him, like as an adult. So, fast forward to 19-year-old Nathan dating a really nice girl, wants a good job, can't get a good job because of he never, got past 8th grade. And he didn't understand at the time that it would cost him money in order to go back and get a diploma or a GED. And he didn't understand what that meant. So, I mean, now at this point, he has his GED and he has a good job and is married and has a kid on the way. But that was a very tough thing for him. Instead of the public school, like looking at the fact that, his mom passed away, he really was like a little lost soul. They just told him to drop out because they didn't want to deal with him.
Yep.
And that was kind of a disservice by the public school system. That should have never happened. And, 23-year-old me had no clue. I was just like, okay, well, we got to get you a job. We got to teach you how to drive. We got to figure all that stuff out. So we did end up helping him figure out the process, but the school district did absolutely nothing to help him in that regard. And that is difficult too. Even a kid that, neurotypical kid makes one bad choice and it kind of affects their whole life. And there was no guidance for him. And so that's a problem, I think, that people will see.
I used to work for, when I worked at the university, I worked for a GED program. And schools do get they have report cards maybe for PDE, and they do look at the number of kids who drop out and don't finish high school. There's no repercussions on the school that are legit if a large number of children don't graduate. But I do remember a bunch of conversations our director would have with school districts, because sometimes school districts will call and say, you're having a GED pretest. We're going to send this kiddo to you, and we really want you to make it really difficult, really tough for them. Let them know how difficult it is, because we want them to stay in school. So really play it up, how hard it is. And she was great. She would do exactly that. You want to stay in school. This isn't super easy to get through. But then sometimes she'd have conversations with someone from the school, like a guidance counselor, principal, whoever. And she'd be like, all right, you want me to kind of give them the tough love? This is going to be really tough. And they're like, nah, they're not going to graduate anyway. So they're going to count against us. So no big deal. And they just threw the kids away. And so one of the classes that I used to run was what we call the fast track class. It was every 6 weeks. If you were ready, it was your last 6-week push to get your GED, and we would do all kinds of stuff. And I remember the one time the students in the class, and some of them were 50-year-old men, and some of them were kids who had kind of gotten pushed out of school. Maybe they were on probation. Their probation officer said, you have to get your GED. And I remember the kids coming to class, and we would, if they made every class, or they only missed one class, we would pay the $60 for the test at the time. And one day they were sitting in class and they were talking about, the reason why I come to class is because I don't have $60. So I wouldn't be able to pay for the class on my own. And then the one kid was like, I would rather come and sit in class and learn and then have you guys to pay for class, because that's an awful lot of beer. And then it broke out into a random math lesson where they were figuring out how much beer they could buy for $60, which was really hysterical. Like, this is what math is like, guys. In the real world, this is what it's like. Like, what can you do, your time or your money, which is more important to you? So, I mean, I had the privilege of working with so many great kids, but it really comes down to parents. We've got to be there. We've got to know. We've got to keep pushing. Peyton said, parents are children's lifelong safety net. And like, isn't that true? When everything else fails, we're the ones who are there to kind of step in and help out. And often it's like at a great cost to our families, because, so many of us don't have like extra money sitting around. And we know if your kiddo goes to college the first time, for the first semester, if they get really bad advice and they go to college for the first semester and they are like put in all these really tough classes and maybe they don't do really well, there's some penalties that kiddos have to pay now, where they may have to take those classes again on their own dime before they can qualify for financial aid. So if families don't know that and families can't step in to help, our kiddos can really be between a rock and a hard place. And we certainly don't want that.
Your neurotypical children are, kind of navigating this world, and you're trying to help them. And then you have a child with some challenges. Just trying to manage it all, can be challenging too. And I tell my families that I talk to all the time, like, I say this a lot, especially to the moms. I'm like, moms are the glue. We're the ones that kind of keep this all together. And when I say that to my families, they're like, wow, you're right. And I'm like, so you have to give yourself a little grace, but you're always going to be advocating and trying to find your way, because nobody is just going to say, okay, here's this folder, open it up, and these are the 20 things you have to do, for your 18-year-old child that's going to graduate, or whatever, neurotypical or not, so we just have to always kind of forge forward, and we just got to keep doing it. And it can be challenging.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I think if you kind of, I think for us, so often we say that our kiddos, we spend so much time working with our children with challenges, but when it comes to transition planning, it's a great equalizer. It's a great opportunity to teach everybody how to do laundry, to teach everybody how to get a stain out, to teach everybody how to think about meal planning and, managing the house so that it doesn't get overwhelming to do everything that you have to do. So I don't think that this is something that you really just want to focus on your child who has any kind of challenges. I think that this is, just in our family, when you hit a certain age, you learn how to do laundry, and maybe you throw in a load of laundry for everybody once a week, and there's 5 of us. So if everybody does one load of laundry, that makes life a little easier. Or, you're all going to come to the grocery store with me and you're all going to learn how to comparison shop, whatever. You're all going to have one dish that you make really, really well. So you have a dish to impress somebody if you ever need to. It's just and we were talking about like those basic life skills and how no one teaches kids those things that we think are kind of maybe common sense, maybe some of the things that we learned. Give your kids some buttons and thread and let them play around a little bit when they're kids and learn how to, even if it's not perfect, how to fix something. if my friend who is a seamstress is listening, she is probably laughing at this point because I'm the person who fixes my hems with like staples when we're places. I can sew if I need to, but hem tape. Teach kids how to use hem tape, man.
I feel like part of the problem with the kids not learning like the life skills too is there's so much technology like at their fingertips that they're never bored. Like I learned to cook and I learned to sew and I learned to do things like that because I didn't have anything else to do. Because I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house and there was nothing to do there. So I learned to like to read that way. I learned to sew that way. I learned to cook that way. So I feel like they have stuff to do all day, so they're not as interested in learning things because they have other things to do. So I think that's actually part of a problem too. I'm trying to make mine lay off the screens a little bit so that they can learn to do some other things.
And me as a grandma, they cook at my house. They're young. They're in the kitchen. You know, we are doing things. Not that I don't do it for my oldest. We do, you know, but my grandchildren come to my house and they're in the kitchen with me.
I wonder though if that's a great opportunity for the families who have that ability
or for grandparents
to see if you could talk to your extended family about working on some of those skills. Because I'll tell you what, if my mom said to me, let's go into the kitchen, I'm going to teach you how to cook, I would have been like, oh, it's like, let me call 911. My mother is abusing me. Oh my God, she's teaching me how to cook. If my grandmother or my great grandmother were like, come on in the kitchen, let's make whatever, come sit here at the counter and talk to me while I cook, I would have been right there. So that may be a really, if you have someone in your life, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, whatever, who will do those kind of life skilly kind of things with the kids so that it's not parents torturing them, because that's what it would be. That's a really great thing to say, hey mom, could you do me a favor and teach me how to make, you know, like eggs? I don't know, whatever.
And that's exactly what I would do. You know, I would call my mom and go, you know, when she's over there, have her do some things, because it's coming from not the parents. When we say it, it's like, oh gosh,
it's fun for them then. Yeah.
But when
that's
a grandparent
true. I watched Jill's son a few weeks ago for her because she had a late night home visit, and he wanted pancakes, which my pancakes aren't good, so I offered French toast. Well, he ended up being in there with me the whole time that I was making French toast, and Jill was like, what is happening? He like wanted to make it. I said he was super interested too. He was asking like what each thing was that I was putting in, because I put like vanilla and cinnamon and sugar and stuff in my like batter for French toast, and he wanted to know what the point was for each thing and stuff. So yeah, that is true that somebody else teaching you is better maybe than your mom, because now he wants to come over and make pumpkin rolls in the fall. That's like his big thing. He said he's going to buy a chef's hat, so we're going to make some pumpkin rolls. But it's me versus like your own mom. Like my own kids have no interest in making French toast with me, but Tiki did. So
yeah, I want to come over and make pumpkin rolls in the fall. Will you call me?
Yes, absolutely, I will. And I'll have a working oven. I haven't had a working oven, like a properly working oven, for several years, so I will have a working oven this year, so that's amazing. I've cooked 5 Thanksgivings with an improperly working oven, and it's been all right. But
well, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I can do just about anything at this point because I've been working with stuff that didn't work properly for all this time.